Well, hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Live at 5. This is a show that I do at 5 p.m. on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on my main channel. On Fridays, we go to my second channel, Actively on Woke, for happy hour, which I will talk about in a second. We got a great presentation for happy hour this week. I just figured it out within the last hour. You guys are going to be blown away at this presentation. And then on Saturdays, I get to take a day off, but I do occasionally post clips for you guys of different stories that I've covered throughout the week just to keep things consistent. If you haven't checked back with the channel in a while, or you haven't been getting notifications or seeing things I'm posting, rest assured that I'm posting pretty much every single day. And YouTube just doesn't sometimes like to share the news. So sometimes we got to check back in because that's just the way our YouTube overlords like to function. Thank you, Naruto, for this super chat even before the show got started today. Dropping this super chat and then gotta leave. Feminists under Trump. Handmaid's Tale, Handmaid's Tale, Handmaid's Tale. Feminists when it actually happens under Biden in Afghanistan. Crickets. I feel exactly the same way, Naruto. I also feel the same way when it comes to China and the epic human rights abuses that China has been engaged in for a while, and apparently just no one cares. No one cares because we only care about these things when they're politically convenient to care about, when they get us more power. Well, guys, we have got a banner day today going on. It is quite amazing, actually, the extent to which Joe Biden has been smacked down today. Like, we all need to enjoy these moments. We need to enjoy moments of successes that we had that we're going to talk about on the channel today. Joe Biden got a 1-2 punch today. He got the first punch when Kyrsten Sinema gave a speech on the Senate floor saying she wasn't going to support getting rid of the filibuster, which has basically put that issue to bed. And he got another punch when SCOTUS decided to smack down the OSHA mandate for large employers for the vaccine. So Biden is not having the best day he's ever had. We're going to talk about that. But before we get into it, I know the question that is burning on everyone's mind. I know what you're all thinking. You are wondering, Carlin, are you still symptomatic for COVID? Can I still get that promo code for your locals that is only good when you are symptomatic for COVID? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can. You can absolutely still get that promo code for COVID while I'm still symptomatic. In fact, let me put it in the chat right now. I don't have the special link that automatically loads the promo code, but that's okay. You can just head over to kb.locals.com/support. Join my locals with a month for free using the promo code COVID. And you can still, at least for today, I'm feeling slightly better today, but I'm still not feeling 100%. So at least for today, you can still join my locals and get a free month for one more day. Who knows if I'll still be symptomatic tomorrow. But if you want to join my locals community and you get to take advantage of all the amazing stuff that we have going on, Ashley Claire says, this is an early birthday present for me. It's great. Yes. I know you're talking about Biden, but I like to think a free month in my locals is also an early birthday present. If you want to take advantage of this, just head over to kp.locals.com/support. Make sure the monthly option is checked off. Go to the promo code and put in COVID. And you're going to receive one free month in my locals. You can also sign up for an annual membership, which gives you 2 months for free. You don't get the promo for that, but if you know you want to join, you know you want to join. You can also make a one-time gift that will give you access to all the features in my locals community. And the reason you want to join my locals is because you get all sorts of awesome exclusive perks, including the 2 local Zoom calls that I do every single week with my locals members. We do them on Monday at 7 p.m. We do them on Wednesdays at noon. We also do book club in my locals. We do craft and bitches in my locals. Many of my locals members are here today. They can tell you all about the community. And I just got confirmation, guys, check this out, The next book we are going to be reading for book club is called The R of the Mind. I can't say that word on YouTube, but it's not that kind of R. This is, let me just read the description for you guys because I'm actually really excited about reading this book. In 1933, Merleau began to study the methods by which systematic mental pressure brings people to abject submission and by which totalitarians imprint their subjective truth on the victim's mind. In the book, he goes far beyond the direct military applications of mental torture to describing how our own culture unobtrusively shows symptoms of pressurizing people's minds. And I did just get confirmation just last night. My friend Aaron Kinsvatter, who you guys might know as the whistleblower that came out of the University of Vermont, he is now a psychotherapist in private practice. He ended up leaving UVM, but he's actually the person that introduced me to this book. And he has agreed to come and have a discussion in our locals community about the book. So Aaron's going to be joining us for a book club. It's going to be in about a month. We're figuring out the date. But if you want to order the book and get started on it, we're trying to figure out the date and we'll get that posted as soon as I can. But I'm really excited about reading this book club. I can't wait to have the discussion with my locals community and with Aaron. And that's part of the perks that you get when you become a member using the promo code COVID today, because I might not be symptomatic tomorrow. You never know. This could be the last chance. Dragon Water said, I like giving you money when I have it. Mount the like button. It can take the mounting. Dragon Water, I absolutely appreciate the support, and I appreciate the reminder to mount that like button. All right, guys, let's jump into the news because we have got a lot of stuff to cover. Now, I just want to start here. Because we all know that the number one thing that most people cared about last November when Joe Biden became the most vote-getting president of any president in history, we know that most people really just wanted to get rid of Donald Trump. Well, most people. I don't believe for one red second that Biden got 81 million votes, but, that's a different conversation for a different day. But it seems as though voting for someone because you don't like mean tweets, it seems as though that maybe wasn't the best call. And a lot of people now seem to be regretting their decision. This is polling numbers that came out this week. Biden's approval is lower than Donald Trump at the same stage of the presidency. President Joe Biden's approval is now lower than former President Donald Trump's at the same time in the presidency, according to a new Quinnipiac poll. The poll, released on Wednesday, showed the president's approval rating stand at 33%, while 53% of Americans disapprove of the job Biden is doing. This represents a 3-point decline since Quinnipiac's survey in November, which found Biden's approval at 36%, while 53% of Americans still disapproved of how he was doing. The figures were slightly different among registered voters, but Biden's approval rating in the most recent poll is lower than former President Trump's approval in a Quinnipiac poll at the same stage of his presidency. In January 2018, they gave Trump an approval rating of 36%, while 59% of respondents disapproved of the job that he was doing. Oh, poor Biden. Poor Biden. I continue to say this, and I know, listen, I don't really feel all that bad for Joe Biden because Joe Biden has gotten himself into this situation his damn self. But there is just one little part of me that feels a little bad about the fact that Joe Biden wanted to be president his entire life. And now that he is president, no one cares and no one likes him. And he probably isn't even aware of the fact that he's president. It's sad. I'm sorry. Can we just have a heart for a second? It is a sad state of affairs. Lewis in the chat says, do you get more from me buying coins and locals since I'm already a member or this super chat? Locals, definitely. Locals, definitely. Locals takes a significantly smaller cut than YouTube does. So if you're choosing between the two, I would definitely do locals. Now, I understand why people want to join and be a member in YouTube or give through super chats. And I certainly won't dissuade it, but I do make a greater percent from locals, and I appreciate the support, Lewis. But, even though we might feel sorry for Joe Biden, can we all just kick back and celebrate a little bit about the fact that the OSHA mandate is dead? It is dead. It is deader than dead. The Supreme Court has smacked it down. And this is why, guys, this is why I told so many of you, don't quit your jobs. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how things are going to play out. Now, it is absolutely still possible that some of your employers could say, we're going to do the mandate regardless. But now a lot of employers have no consequence if they want to ignore that stupid mandate. Let's read this from CNN. I've taken to lately, when I get news I kind of like reading about it on CNN and MSNBC just to experience the whining and the reeing that goes on and the pearl clutching that goes on in these articles. So let's read this article from CNN. The Supreme Court on Thursday blocked President Joe Biden's vaccine or testing requirement aimed at large businesses, but it allowed a vaccine mandate for certain healthcare workers to go into effect nationwide. So that's certain healthcare workers, which of course they're not being specific about that. You know how we covered yesterday that hospitals are now begging people to work when they're sick with COVID because of the stupid vaccine mandate? Well, the Supreme Court basically said that although it did smack down the OSHA mandate, and of course, that's the thing that we're going to celebrate the most today, they did uphold the fact that the Biden administration could require healthcare workers to be vaccinated when they worked in federally funded facilities, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but I suppose you got to take what you can get. And there's a reason that those federally funded facilities are probably grossly understaffed right now because they're firing people over vaccines. The decision was a huge hit to Biden's attempts to use the power of the federal government to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. The president has emphasized the necessity of getting vaccinated against the virus for months and eventually decided to use the mandates on large employers as his main vehicle for convincing vaccine hesitant Americans to get their shots. In freezing a lower court opinion that allowed the regulation to go into effect nationwide, the majority sent a clear message to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration charged with protecting workplace safety. It had overstepped its authority in issuing such a sweeping emergency directive that would impact millions of workers. In contrast, the justices said that a separate agency could issue a rule to protect health and safety of Medicare and Medicaid patients. Although Congress has indisputably given OSHA the power to regulate occupational dangers, it has not given that agency the power to regulate public health more broadly, requiring the vaccination of more than 84 million Americans selected simply because they work for employers with more than 100 employees falls into the latter category. Biden issued a statement praising the ruling on healthcare workers, but criticized the ruling on businesses that had much wider effect. I am disappointed that the Supreme Court has chosen to block common sense, life-saving requirements for employees at large businesses that were grounded squarely in both science and the law. Moving forward, Biden said, it is now up to states and individual employers to determine whether their workplaces as safe as possible for employees, whether their businesses will be safe for consumers during this pandemic by requiring employees to take the simple and effective step of getting vaccinated. Well, I mean, clearly, Biden, it actually was not grounded in the law because the Supreme Court struck down your vaccination requirement. But Glenn Greenwald actually had some interesting things to say about this, and he's been reading the opinion. Obviously, like, I haven't read it. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't weigh in on this sort of thing. But I do listen to really smart people like Glenn Greenwald, and he had some things to say that I think we should all be keeping in mind. The first thing he said is nothing in today's 6-3 Supreme Court ruling stops Congress from imposing a vaccine mandate for large employers. Congress is free to do so. The ruling is that since Congress did not, Biden and the Department of Labor don't have authority under OSHA to unilaterally impose one. And then we can look and see if this wants to load. Applicants are likely to succeed on the merits of their claim that the secretary lacked authority to impose the mandate. Administrative agencies are creatures of statute. They accordingly possess only the authority that Congress has provided. The Secretary has ordered 84 million Americans to either obtain a COVID-19 vaccine or undergo weekly medical testing at their own expense. This is no everyday exercise of federal power. It is instead a significant encroachment into the lives and health of a vast number of employees. We expect Congress to speak clearly when authorizing an agency to exercise powers of vast economic and political significance. There can be little doubt that OSHA's mandate qualifies as an exercise of such authority. The question is then whether the Act plainly authorizes the Secretary's mandate. It does not. The Act empowers the Secretary to set workplace safety standards, not broad public health measures. Confirming that point, the Act's provisions typically speak that hazards that employees face at work, and no provision of the Act addresses public health more generally, which falls outside of OSHA's sphere of expertise. So in theory, Congress still could pass something, but obviously that's not going to happen in the way things currently are. Dragonwater says, now we need to get a ruling to protect workplaces and schools, including their students, from governors like Oregon's Kate Brown. I absolutely agree with you there, Dragonwater. Glenn Greenwald also had some other things to say, though. Check this out. In Gorsuch's concurrence, signed by Alito and Thomas, he made a passive-aggressive reference to Twitter boasting of Ron Klain, Biden's White House chief of staff, about what a clever workaround of Congress this vaccine mandate is. That was cited as a reason for its legal being legally invalid. There we go. I got there eventually. You got COVID brain. I'm sick. Everything is blamed on COVID brain. But look at this. So this was actually cited in the Supreme Court ruling. So Stephanie Rule, who's a woman on MSNBC, tweeted this out back in September. OSHA during this vax mandate as an emergency workplace safety rule is the ultimate workaround for the federal government to require vaccinations. And it was retweeted by the White House chief of staff. And then in the Supreme Court ruling, check this out. It seems, too, that the agency pursued its regulatory initiatives only as a legislative workaround. Too bad. So sad, Biden administration. But, guys, this is why you don't quit your jobs. This is why, excuse me, this is why you don't take your toys and go home. You fight until the very last moment. I remember back a couple months ago, there were so many people who were like emailing me and getting in contact with me so dejected. Like, what do I do about my job? What do I do about my job? What do I do about my job? And universally, I would say, don't quit, don't leave, don't give up. Don't, like, again, we don't know what private employers are going to do or what decisions they're going to make, but I know a lot of people who preemptively quit their job when they didn't have to in order to avoid the vaccine mandate. And I was like begging and pleading with people. I was like, don't do it. Just wait it out. Just wait a couple more months. But people were so quick to quit their jobs. Now, in some cases, like we see Glass Shrimp here, I quit my job and I got one that pays me a lot more. Well, that worked out well. That worked out well. And of course, that's always the ideal that we want to look for. Guys, fun fact, the number one way to get a raise, like a really good raise, is to go work for another company. That's the best way to get a raise, to be honest, is to go work for another company, get another job. But so many people quit preemptively, and it's like, you didn't have to, man. You were inflicting suffering upon yourself for no good reason other than you were scared. And I get that there's reason to be scared, and it's not a perfect ruling, but still. Mandy says, get well soon. Thank you so much, Mandy, for the super chat. I greatly appreciate it. I'll buy some medicine with that. I appreciate the support. But that wasn't the only thing that happened today. We got our Supreme Court ruling. That's kind of like a relief, isn't it? The Supreme Court did the right thing there. But this happened too. House passes voting rights package, setting up Senate filibuster showdown. Well, by the time the Hill had already published this, and look at Nancy's shit-eating grin. Oh my God. Nancy's eyebrows have settled back in, apparently. She spoke to whoever did her Botox or her facelift. The eyebrows have settled. That's good news, at least. The House passed voting rights legislation on Thursday in a way that is intended to set up a battle in the Senate over that issue, as well as the filibuster. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has vowed to put the measure to a vote in the coming days before the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in a bid to highlight state laws approved by GOP-dominated state governments that Democrats say will make it more difficult for their supporters, including minority voters, to vote. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy. Well, sadly, that bill is pretty much dead. Pretty much dead on arrival, thanks to two senators, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. This in Breitbart, Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin reject Biden's plea to destroy the filibuster and election integrity. I love Kyrsten Sinema. I want to hang out with Chris. Does anyone in the chat want to hang out with Kyrsten Sinema? I want to hang out with her. I want to go get like cocktails with her. She's got the best clothes. Like, I just have so much, I have so much admiration for Kyrsten Sinema. I don't agree with her on everything, but man, this woman has got balls. She has got balls. There's just no other way to put it. Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin on Thursday rejected Joe Biden's plea to destroy the 60-vote filibuster threshold that will make way for election integrity. Now, I told you guys this was going to be okay. I predicted this was going to be okay. Joshua did too, by the way. Speaking on the Senate floor, while Biden was urging Democratic senators to curtail the filibuster, Sinema defended the filibuster as the deliberative body's mechanism for thoughtful public debate. This week's harried discussions about Senate rules are but a poor substitute for what I believe could have and should have been a thoughtful public debate at any time over the past year. But what is the legislative filibuster other than a tool that requires new federal policy to be broadly supported by senators representing the broader cross-section of Americans, she continued. Demands to eliminate this threshold from whichever party holds the fleeting majority amounts to a group of people separated by two sides of a canyon shouting that solution to their colleagues. Sinema's statement is important because Biden needs all 50 Democratic senators' yes votes to alter the filibuster rules. Sinema also echoed Mitch McConnell's comments on Wednesday that stressed the importance of the filibuster in an evenly divided Congress. Today marks the longest time in history the Senate has been equally divided. The House of Representatives is nearly equally divided as well, she explained. Our mandate, it seems to me, is to work together and to get stuff done for America, Sinema said. On a matter of destroying election integrity, Sinema indicated she supports the Democrats' efforts to federalize local elections, but that the bills do not fully address the disease of division. The bill helps treat the symptoms of the disease, but they do not fully address the disease itself. And while I continue to support these bills, I will not support separate actions that worsen the underlying disease of division affecting our country. Guys, let's give a slow clap for Kyrsten Sinema. Slow clap for Kyrsten Sinema in the chat. You know, man, it takes courage to do what she did. And again, this is not a bill that I support in any way, shape, or form. And so I am perfectly happy to see it die. But it absolutely takes courage to say, I support this bill, but I'm not going to do anything and destroy the deliberative body that is the Senate in order to get my way. There aren't a lot of people that are built like Kyrsten Sinema in politics today. There aren't. I would take her. You know, I was arguing on Twitter earlier. I had one of those days where I was just like in the mood to fight. I was just really in the mood to fight today, to be honest. And so I was arguing on Twitter, and someone said, "Carlin, any Republican in the world is better than any Democrat." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. That is part of the problem. There are a lot of Republicans that I do not believe that are as good as Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. I'm sorry. There are a lot of Republicans that would throw principle out the window immediately if it was convenient. There are a lot of Republicans that are just doing what they need to do in order to get elected and to keep that job and to not do anything else in the meantime. There are many, many Republicans that I would label as worse than people like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, two people who are very literally like at the doors holding back the mob for all of us. But you know, one of the things that I found really funny. Oh, this is a tweet from Jennifer Rubin. Jennifer Rubin is, of course, losing her mind. Sinema is effectively asking the authors of Jim Crow and vote rigging to give their permission for her to stop it. This is worse than incoherence or cowardice. It's a moral disgrace. Ask the segregationists for permission to vote for the Civil Rights Act. How was Jennifer Rubin ever a conservative? I'm honestly asking. I have never known Jennifer Rubin as anything other than a screeching leftist. Was she ever really a conservative? But what I really want to show you guys, check this out. We're going to look at this in a different window. Hang on. I want you to hear the sound. So this is Biden giving a speech outside the Senate chamber. I just want to show you guys something. This is actually really funny. This is really funny. I just need to get it into a different window so we can hear the sound. Okay, we're going to watch. It's a 1-minute clip from Biden giving this speech outside the Senate chamber. Okay. Let me know if you can hear the sound, and I'm gonna talk you guys through what I see. Okay, we're gonna go. Watch behind Biden. Watch behind Biden. Watch behind Biden. There's Kyrsten Sinema. There she is. Oh, Biden's talking. Oh, running away. Oh, you guys can't hear him? Oh, no. Sorry. Okay, we'll try again. It didn't even really matter. Oh, shit. Sorry, I screwed that up. Hey, God, we'll try again. We're going to do it again. Okay. Try again. But watch behind Biden. Watch right here what happens behind Biden. Kyrsten Sinema is going to pop out, and she's going to see that Biden's talking, and she's going to run away.
Is this mic on? I guess, anyway. Yeah. And I'm not sure either. But anyway, I hope we can get this done. But I'm not sure. But one thing for certain, like every other major civil rights bill that came along, if we missed the first time, we could come back and try it a second time. We missed this time. And the state legislative bodies continue to change the law. Not as who can vote, but who gets to count the vote. Count the vote. It's about election subversion, not just whether or not people get to vote. Who counts the vote? That's what this is about. That's what makes this so different than anything else we've ever done. I don't know that we can get it done, but I know one thing. As long as I have a breath in me, as long as I'm in the White House, as long as I'm engaged at all, I'm going to be fighting to change the way these legislatures have moving. Thank you.
Biden seems to think that if he gets angry with people, he's going to be more convincing. I don't know. Could you guys hear the sound that second time? Sorry about the first time. Dragonwater says, not hearing Biden is a blessing in disguise. I just love that, though. Like, Kyrsten Sinema, like, pops up and like, no, oh, no, going away. It's the best. Well, thank God for Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. I think it's great. But you know what's funny is I was looking around on CNN, and so Biden's been getting like angry and fiery in these voting rights speeches because again, like I really think that Biden he wants to. Yeah, Jess T. I think you hit the nail on the head. Oh, hang on. Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Jess T. He feels like if he shouts, he's going to come across as like more powerful and authoritative. But to me, he just kind of looks like. Tell me if this rings true for you guys. He looks like kind of like the crazy old grandfather at the family reunion was like, let me tell you about my day. And I had to walk uphill to school both ways in the snow with shoe boxes for shoe boxes for shoes. And no one ever picked me up or brought like he looks like a crazy old man. He looks like a crazy old man. And it seems as though that even some Democrats, according to this analysis on CNN, thinks that Joe Biden went too far with his yes, exactly, Jeanette. Get off my lawn. Biden is total get off my lawn energy and not in a good way, not in a positive way. But let's read this article from CNN in which it seems like some Democrats are saying Biden's just gone too far. President Joe Biden didn't mince words earlier this week in a speech announcing his support for changing the filibuster rules to allow for a simple majority to pass new voting rights legislation. Do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Asked Biden. Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? Do you want to be on the side of Abraham Lincoln or Jefferson Davis? This is a moment to decide, to defend our elections, to defend our democracy. If you do that, you will not be alone. But for one Democratic senator, Biden's rhetoric was over the top. It is stark, and I will concede that point, Illinois Senator Dick Durbin told CNN's Jake Tapper on Wednesday of Biden's language, later adding, perhaps the president went a little too far in his rhetoric. Some of us think so. What's going on there? Do you guys think? Hang on, I'll make this a little bit bigger. I apologize for the size of the font. What do you guys think is going on there? Why are Democrats coming out and saying Biden's gone too far? Remember, Democrats in 2020 were perfectly okay with burning down major American cities and called it mostly peaceful protests. But Joe Biden gives a speech in which he acts like a crazy old man, and the Democrats all of a sudden are like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's just too far, Joe. Too far. What's going on there? Yeah, exactly. Low approval ratings. They saw the polls. That's exactly what's going on. You're right. You're right. Nick H says, who counts the vote? Tell Biden Stalin said that. Words of wisdom, Nick H. That's not an insignificant critique of the president. Dick Durbin is a veteran voice in the chamber, one who at one point was seen as a potential leader of the Senate Democrats. He's neither a malcontent nor a backbencher. And that he is willing to go on the record with his belief that Biden went a little too far is notable. At issue is whether Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Biden can convince all 50 senators in the Democratic caucus to vote to change the rules that currently require 60 votes to end the Senate's unlimited debate in order to bring a voting rights package to the floor for a vote. Even before Biden gave his speech comparing the current opposition of Republicans to the voting rights legislation to segregationists, that seemed an unlikely proposition. It's worth asking the question whether the president hindered rather than helped the efforts to get all 50 Democrats on board with filibuster change. Sinema, in an impassioned speech on the Senate floor on Thursday, reiterated her opposition to changing the rules. We've already covered that. So it's possible that Biden's speech had little actual negative effect on his desired audience, but it certainly doesn't seem to have helped him either. Given all that, it seems, at least in the short term, that Biden's speech earlier this week did more harm than good for his efforts to cajole the Senate into jettisoning the filibuster. which obviously is the opposite of what he was going for, presumably. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? That apparently even the Democrats can read low poll numbers and are seeing exactly where all this is going. Well, guys, you are watching Live at 5. This is a show that I do on Monday or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on this channel. And Sundays we do effed up news, so it's a little bit more of a fun collection of news stories. Head over to my locals community if you want to see what's on deck for effed up news this week. We've got some really good stories coming up for effed up news on Sunday. I'm looking forward to that. Now, tomorrow is Friday, and Friday is a special day because Fridays we go over to my second channel, Actively Unwoke, and we'd have happy hour on the channel. Happy hour is a time when we come together to watch a woke training, and I usually drink some beer and make fun of it. I don't know if I'm going to be drinking tomorrow. We'll see how the day goes, but I'm definitely going to be we're definitely still going to do happy hour regardless of whether I have booze or not, and we're definitely still going to make fun of it. And guys, what I have tomorrow is a presentation from a county level government in Maryland that is literally called "The Problem Is and Always Has Been Whiteness." This is a county level government employee. The Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer is going to give a whole presentation about how whiteness has always been the problem, paid for by Maryland taxpayers. We're going to be doing that tomorrow on my second channel at 5 p.m. You can subscribe to my second channel by heading into the description, whether you're watching on YouTube or Rockfin or Odyssey. And head over to youtube.com/activelyunwoke and subscribe. Now, if you are watching on Rockfin and Odyssey, I will be streaming Happy Hour live on the same channel you're watching on right now, so you don't have to do anything special if you don't want to. But this will be on my second YouTube channel, not my primary one, because that's what we do on Fridays. We take a little step back. We have a little bit more fun. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a great presentation, and we'll see you all there. All right, guys, mount that like button if you haven't already. Now, I've got a little baby story here. Baby story. And I'm just really showing you this story to demonstrate a point. So this came out in the New York Times today. The RNC signals a pullout from presidential debates. The Republican National Committee says it will require candidates to pledge to not participate in debates run by the Commission on Presidential Debates. What would replace them, if anything, is unclear. Now, we can argue that the Commission on Presidential Debates is obviously partisan, because it obviously is. It is. However, the problem is that it's not clear to me that the RNC has proposed any viable alternative. So what this looks like to me is the RNC yet again not thinking things through and saying, we're taking our toys and going home because you are big meanies and you're unfair. And in the process of that, they are saying, we don't care to present our case to the independents and undecided voters in America. I don't know why the Republicans keep making stupid decisions like this. I don't know why the Republicans seemingly have no interest at all in wooing voters. Let's read a little bit of this article. The Republican National Committee is preparing to change its rules to require presidential candidates seeking the party's nomination to sign a pledge to not participate in any debates sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. Republican committee officials alerted the Debate Commission to their plan in a letter sent on Thursday, a copy of which was obtained by the New York Times. If the change goes forward, it would be one of the most substantial shifts in how presidential and vice presidential debates have been conducted since the commission began organizing debates more than 30 years ago. The move by the RNC was an outgrowth of the long health complaints and came after months of discussions between the commission and party officials. Oh, so it's even more we're taking our toys and going home, so there. It's even more. They're mad. Oh my God, these people. According to the RNC's letter, the chairman of the party's temporary presidential debate committee, David, began discussing last year with the debate commission co-chairperson, Frank, a former Republican official. The Republican Party chairwoman, Ronna, had demanded that changes be made to the commission and how the debates were held, writing in a letter to the commission in June, and the party and its voters had lost faith in the commission. Well, dude, I understand why they're losing faith in the commission. I understand that. But if you don't have an alternative, all you're doing is taking away an opportunity to present your case to the American people. It looks like you're cowards. I'm sorry. It looks like you're cowards. Now, Just T has a good alternative in the chat. I mean, I like this alternative. Have them go on like Joe Rogan or Dave Rubin or Glenn Beck. Have them do that. That's at least something. I would love. Who wouldn't love Joe Rogan to be the moderator of the debate? That would be the best thing that's ever happened. But even on Newsmax, they reported that this might not even make any difference anyway. While the Republican National Committee has the ability to change many party rules between its quadrennial conventions, final say on whether to participate in the commission-sponsored debates will fall on the GOP's eventual 2024 nominee. The nominee could effectively control the convention, which could easily strip the rule drafted by the party insiders if the nominee believes it is in their best interest to attend the debates. So even Newsmax is like, guys, come on. Like, the nominee can just do whatever the F they want. If the nominee wants to go and participate in the debate, they're still going to be able to go and participate in the debate. Oh, I have a dissenter in the chat. Tay-Fan 2 said, you are wrong on this one. I can feel the pearl clutching, Tay-Fan. I can feel the pearl clutching. It's coming through the chat. You are wrong on this one. The Republicans are flexing instead of saying mute like Yang when they cut off his microphone. Why assume there is no backup? I assume there is no backup because literally no backup has been presented. Literally no backup has been presented. There is they do not have another option. Anyone who has been paying attention to how the RNC works knows they have no other alternative. Do you know how I know this? The RNC is so lazy that they have not updated their own effing platform since 2012. That's how I know the RNC doesn't have another option. The RNC has not updated their own party platform in 10 effing years. That's how I know they don't have another platform or another alternative. Please. But I want to show you guys why I'm talking about this. This is how this is going to be painted by the other side. This is a tweet from the Washington Post, and we're not going to read this article, but I just want to show you what's actually in this tweet. Let me see if I can make it any bigger. There we go. Analysis. Another sign that Trump and the GOP want to upend the 2024 to their advantage. And this says, the former president was consistently beaten in presidential debates, so no more debates. This will absolutely be painted by the other side as, oh, they just don't care about making their case to the American people. They know they're going to lose anyway, so they're just not even showing up. In fact, what could potentially happen here is the Commission on Presidential Debates says, F you, we're having a debate. You can either show up or not. The Democrat shows up to the debate. The Republican chooses not to show up to the debate. And then all of a sudden, you have something on live TV in prime time where the Democrat has full control of everything that is seen, basically a free campaign ad, all because the Republican took their toys and went home and looked like a spoiled child that wasn't going to play and didn't care about talking to the American people. If you don't have another alternative, don't let your ego get in the way in negotiations. And it seems to me that that's exactly what happened in this case. Now, let's just be real for a second. We all know that the Republicans do not have the stones to back this up. I'm sorry. The Republicans will absolutely show up for the debates. It is stupid to even consider otherwise. And in the meantime, they frankly look like spoiled children who just don't want to play in the sandbox anymore. That's what it looks like. I think it's dumb. It was dumb that Ronna sent that letter. It was dumb in the way they negotiated. It's just like another in a long series of missteps. And the RNC needs to get their house in order, man. Scott Presler right now is doing more work effectively than the RNC is. Sorry, gonna say it. Gonna say it. And I don't even care if it makes you guys unhappy with me. Don't care. I see lots of capitals in the chat. Don't care. Don't care. But let's move on. Let's move on. Let's talk about critical race theory. We haven't talked about critical race theory in a minute. There's a couple things I want to talk about when it comes to this. Now, at the high level point that I want to start at is I continue to be very concerned about the fact that the right is classifying every single thing they don't like in schools. Tay-Fan, this isn't a flex. This isn't a flex. You're only flexing when you're not going to capitulate later. This is not a flex. This doesn't make someone look strong. This only makes them look weak. I'm sorry. That's how I feel about it. Makes them look weak. Makes them look extremely weak. Makes them look like they have small PP energy, man. Let's talk about critical race theory. Now, I continue to have concerns about the fact that the right seems to be hell-bent on labeling everything it doesn't like in schools as critical race theory, because there are multiple different things going on. And the minute that you start labeling everything as critical race theory is the minute that people stop being focused on what the real problems are. But I do want to talk about this story that came out from the Daily Wire. Now, I am not the biggest fan of the Daily Wire at all. Let me make the type a little bit bigger again. I'm not the biggest fan of the Daily Wire, but who I am a fan of is Luke Rosiak. Luke is very good. Luke is an extremely good investigative journalist. And so Daily Wire rightfully snatched him up. And so because Luke wrote this article, we will read this article, and is more a reflection on the fact that I believe he has integrity, not that I think that the Daily Wire is the greatest publication that has ever existed. All right. This is a red state just spent money for handicapped preschoolers on CRT training. North Carolina is on blast from a parents group after the school board approved a $7 million federal grant called the Preschool Handicapped Grant to be used for equity and cultural responsiveness in early childhood education. Now, here starts my problem, because this is labeled as CRT training. We can say that anytime we see the word equity, critical race theory is not far behind. That's very true. But culturally responsive learning and teaching is a different thing. Now, they're all related. Everything's related. But what this is not actually critical race theory, and I'm going to explain why. Preying on disabled 3-year-olds, getting them to participate in a political movement to hate themselves based on their skin color in the process shows that our public schools will to be morally corrupt than all others, says Sloan Ratchmuth, president of the group Education First Alliance, in a press release. With this vote, North Carolina's schools become the most radically divisive system in America. Guys, I definitely encourage everyone to subscribe to Sloan's YouTube channel. She does a great job. But Sloan is focused on social emotional learning. This is social emotional learning. This is not critical race theory. It's social emotional learning. They're two different things. Yes, Sing got it. Is this SEL? Yes. This is SEL. We have to start calling things what they are. Deniers of the idea that critical race theory is in schools inspired K-12 initiatives sometimes claim that it is only in law schools, far from special needs preschools. Well, the problem is, again, it's like, this is not critical race theory. What we're going to read about is not critical race theory, so it actually serves to prove this point. The money for handicapped preschoolers ultimately comes from Federal Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs. The grant went to the University of North Carolina Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute. Even before the current grant approval, preschool teachers were offered equity and cultural responsive in early childhood education classroom training to a joint project of the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, blah, blah, blah. A slide says teachers should help preschoolers with building racial identity and encourage the children to question social, scientific, and historical facts. We want children to question whether information is true. Well, that's an interesting idea, isn't it? They want children as young as preschool to question whether information is true. What they're trying to teach children in this is to not believe what is right in front of your eyes. Building racial identity. Encourage children to question social, scientific, and historical facts. We want children to question whether information is true. Talk with children about their identities. That's social emotional learning. Anytime you see like discussions about your identities, that's almost always social emotional learning. Present materials that show children of color in positions of power and authority as main characters. Learn and teach, that's critical race theory. Learn and teach children about people of color all year. Ensure that children of color see themselves in the curriculum. That's critical race theory. Provide challenging instruction that encourages children to question what they see around them, including issues of power and control. That could be critical race theory. It could be social emotional learning. It could be either. In a section titled General Supervision of Children, which governs children's health and safety, a page with the same watermark says controlling a preschool class requires understanding that control is based in white norms and is associated with white supremacist thought. It is appropriate to focus on social, emotional teaching and learning. So these are two different issues. I really just want to put a fine point on this, guys. These are two issues, social emotional learning, and then we have critical race theory. So anytime you're talking about race and oppression and power and control, that's going to be critical race theory. Anytime you're talking about identities and gender and feelings, that's going to be social emotional learning. They go together. They go like this, right? It's not like they're completely unrelated, but they are two different things. And this is important to understand because if you're trying to solve the critical race theory problem and you label everything as critical race theory, and all of a sudden critical race theory gets banned in the school, and then you say, woo, we did it. We got rid of critical race theory. Well, what happens when the school slyly slides social emotional learning in there? Parents think, oh, we got rid of critical race theory. We don't need to worry about this anymore. But social emotional learning is still going on. That literally is happening in New Hampshire. Technically, in New Hampshire, critical race theory is banned in schools. Technically. I say technically because it's not really. There are so many loopholes in this law. It's not even funny. But technically, teaching certain divisive concepts is banned in New Hampshire schools. Guess what's not banned in New Hampshire schools? Social emotional learning. Guess what is in every public school in New Hampshire? Social emotional learning. It's literally on the New Hampshire Department of Education website. So there is danger in conflating these terms, and I want people to make sure they know emphatically what they are talking about. North Carolina has a Republican-dominated legislature, and its state superintendent, Catherine, is also a Republican. Yet critical race theory has overtaken the state, perhaps even more than most blue regions. That is in no small part because of the School of Education at the University of North Carolina. It is also because politicians are generally involved at a high-level policy stage, whereas the devil often resides in the details, which are implemented by staff, consultants, and activists. The state's Republican Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson, who is Black and strongly opposes critical race theory, has done the unglamorous work of delving into detail to root it out, but others have merely given lip service to their opposition. Video of a January 5th meeting of the State Board of Education, where the $7 million contract was approved, shows staff effortlessly taking control of the conversation and swatting away concerns that a school board member attempted to bring to the superintendent. Board member Amy raised concerns about the preschool grant, but she was not specific in her objections and was deferential to the staff, saying she received an email about the program contains critical race theory, but I don't know whether that was factual or not, and I'm bringing it to the table to ask whether or not that's true. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about this. Because this is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to school board meetings, guys. What happened here? There was a school board member in Republican-heavy North Carolina that came to a school board meeting and said, guys, I just wonder, is critical race theory in this $7 million package that we're about to approve? And she was ignored. This is why you can't, do not go into school board meetings, even if you have the information on your side, and just assume that you can go in and say, I just think that this is a bad idea, and present logic and facts and you'll be heard. This is proof positive that it doesn't work out that way. Stop being so nice. I'll say it another way. Stop being so nice. The superintendent, who previously told the Republican group she opposes critical race theory, had stepped out of the meeting, and so a staff member issued a vague response that seemed to say that the training session was not a work product of the grant, even though the grant would pay the same people to create more content on the topic. The superintendent rejoined the meeting, and the staff member pointed out to her White's question. White explained the concerns that some of the ideologies posted on their website are not aligned with the board's commitment to really focus on equity, as opposed to anything aligned with critical race theory. Excuse me, guys. The superintendent said, this is wholly separate from anything they are doing. When we talk about equity and culturally responsive training, it is specific to preschool children with disabilities. That seemed to miss the point that the objection was why disabled 3-year-olds were being subjected to culturally responsive training at all. They literally justified it by saying, this is just for 3-year-olds with disabilities. Can you imagine? Can you imagine justifying things like this with the answer, well, this is just, helping 3-year-olds with disabilities understand their racial identities? So this is going on in North Carolina. Check this out on the Daily Wire if you live in North Carolina and want more information about that. I really just wanted to use this as an example to illustrate the point that, well, a couple points. Number one, we have to be more specific about what we're talking about. And number two, do not go in with your hat in your hand into these meetings and be nice. It is not nice to indoctrinate 3-year-olds into a cult, guys. If you aren't going to get angry about not even 3-year-olds, 3-year-olds with disabilities. If you aren't going to get angry about 3-year-olds with disabilities getting indoctrinated into a cult, come on, what is the line? And I'm honestly asking for anyone in the chat who is not angry about this stuff yet, what is your line to where you will start getting angry? What is your line to where you will start fighting back? What is your line to where you are going to stand up and say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore? What is your line? This article is literally talking about indoctrinating 3-year-olds with disabilities. Are we there yet? Have we passed the line? Why am I the only one angry? I don't even have kids. Stop being nice with these people. Stop expecting that you can go in and say, here are all the reasons that critical race theory is bad and I really don't think we should be doing it. That's not actually going to get you anywhere. You have to show up. You have to get in their faces. You have to be more aggressive. You have to be more assertive. You have to get other parents in the community on your side before you even go in to have these conversations. You have to go in with a team. Go in with backup so that the schools have absolutely no choice but to listen to you. Go in with a group. Bring signs. Bring signs with their addresses on them, even better. Because all that's going to be publicly available information. And if they don't want to listen, you go back. And if they still don't want to listen, you go back again. And if they still don't want to listen, you organize a honk parade and you drive by their houses and let them know that you know where they live. These people are indoctrinating disabled 3-year-olds. If the time for being nice isn't over when it comes to disabled 3-year-olds, I just don't know what is, guys. What's the line? Oh, Carlin, you're so mean to us. That's what I'm going to hear from this. You're so mean. I don't know why you have to be so mean. I don't know why you have to have a tone. They're indoctrinating disabled 3-year-olds. If you don't have a tone, then you are not a human being. But the last one I want to look at is this article from National Review, Where Critical Race Theory Comes From. Now, one of the things you're going to be hearing more and more about as we get into 2022 is critical pedagogy. Critical pedagogy. So this is a little overview article that I thought we would take a look at as a group to learn a little bit more about critical pedagogy. And I'm looking forward to having some guests on my channel as I get less sick and have more energy and can bring them on more to talk more about critical pedagogy as the year goes on. But for right this second, we'll just start here. Critical pedagogy is an anti-enlightenment wellspring from which CRT and other suspect activist ideologies flow. This is from Daniel Buck, who's involved with Chalkboard Review, which is a pretty good website online. There is a fundamental change occurring in in American education. You have likely heard from some that it is critical race theory, a fringe understanding of race in America, and from others that it is just a boogeyman. Neither assertion is correct. Rather, critical pedagogy, a politicized theory of education of which CRT is but one branch, has some prevailing theory in American colleges of education, influencing curriculum, instruction, and policies around the country. That font is really small. I apologize. You guys can always yell at me, by the way, to make the font bigger, and I'll do my best. That looks a little bit better. Let's see if we can make it even a little bit bigger. There we go. That's nice and big. That's better. Daniel Buck does kind of sound like a porn star name. Sorry, Daniel. Sorry. In place of academic skills and a worldview grounded in Enlightenment thinking, critical pedagogy teaches students political activism and a worldview of oppression. We shouldn't be surprised then that the results of such a pedagogy leave students angry, but with a paucity of literary, mathematical, and historical knowledge, the very things they need to live a fulfilled, thoughtful, successful life. While showing every shortcoming of critical pedagogy is beyond the bounds of one essay, conservatives need to understand that this problem extends far beyond a few racialized, politicized lessons in coastal schools. One English curriculum, the unit of study, which thousands of schools use, bases its work on critical theories, including CRT, but also post-colonial, feminist, and other radical ideologies. The curriculum cites Kimberly Crenshaw, a founding scholar of CRT, as well as other progressive activists such as Angela Davis, a Marxist scholar, and Judith Butler, a gender theorist. So I want to know what he's saying here. The shortcoming of critical pedagogy is beyond the bounds of one essay, but conservatives need to understand this problem extends beyond a few racialized, politicized lessons in coastal schools. I have been getting so annoyed at Moms for Liberty for focusing on banning books, purely because of this. We should not be banning books. Banning books is a waste of time. I don't care if it's the teacher's manual. I do not care. Unless those books depict overt sexual acts, and I'm talking about in comic form with illustration. You guys know what I'm talking about for the most part. Leave the books alone. There are so many bigger problems to fight right now than banning books. In fact, banning books should never ever be on the table at all. We lose all credibility when we make the argument to ban books. And conservative groups need to cut that shit out and start focusing on more important things. Effective propaganda can be as subtle as it is insidious. When it's obvious, loud, and galling, it's easy to identify and reject. When it's no more noticeable than a few mold spores, it can go on spreading until the entire institution rots. We should absolutely confront the media grabbing practices such as privilege walks. But picking such battles is akin to wiping away a few mold spots from a rotting floorboard. I love the way he put this. Because, and this is exactly why I do these happy hours, guys. This is exactly why I do them. Because I think that it is so important that we understand and fully appreciate the breadth of what this is, rather than just the headlines or the clip that gets played on Tucker Carlson or any of those things. Because it is so much more insidious than a lot of the pundits even understand themselves. The traditional conceptions of education trace back to the Greeks and Romantics, and comparing these ideas to critical pedagogy can isolate exactly what this philosophy is and, perhaps more importantly, isn't. In his Republic, Plato portrays education as the process of extracting individuals from a cave of shadows into the light of reality. In Aristotle's, I don't know how to pronounce that, the goal of education is forming the virtuous habits. In both cases, education directs us beyond ourselves, discovering the world as it is and aligning our characters to an objective law from without. These beliefs dominated European up until and through the Enlightenment. That should be Europe, obviously. Medieval universities built upon the liberal arts, and Loyola attempted to systemize education for the youth in his Ratio Studiorum. Then Romantics, such as Rousseau, suggested that children follow their natural inclinations, that any ascription to outside influence is only corrupting, and John Dewey popularized this version in the 20th century. Dewey went so far as to say that no content had inherent value in learning, rather what interests the child should lead the way. Education came to focus on the self. Both Greek and Romantic theories manifest today in classical and project-based learning, respectively. We can debate their relative efficacy, but in both cases, their focus remains primarily on the academics and moral foundation, or formation, rather. Its traditional education asks us to step back into our backyard to explore the world, and Romantic education asks us to explore what's inside. Critical pedagogy would have us burn down the house and trench the garden. There it is. There it is. Dragonwater said, the reason CRT is so hard to get rid of is that we've been putting up with the same ideas from feminism for decades. Well, it's not just feminism. Feminism is one part of this. Just like race is one part of this. Right? This is a much bigger thing. This is the same, like, you know how, like, so James Lindsay's book, right, with Helen Pluckrose is called Cynical Theories. That's because they're doing a play on words of critical theory. Critical theory is the ideology of which every other type of critical theory is under. So critical race theory, critical gender theory, fat studies, queer studies, disability studies, it's all under critical theory. Critical pedagogy is the teaching of all the crazy shit. The actual infusion of all the crazy stuff into the pedagogy that teachers are using in the classroom. Paulo Freire's book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, is often considered the seminal work of critical pedagogy. It has sold millions of copies since its publication, a rare feat for a niche book on education. Academic journals dedicate entire issues to it, and university libraries host special events for it. It is a canon in the schools of education. Ironically, while a tract on education, the book provides little practical insight on instruction, where he does give explicit direction. He encourages educators to travel from town to town, observe local needs, and encourage workers into action. He cites the mass murderer Che Guevara as an example of a loving teacher, and the Maoist Cultural Revolution, with its death toll in the millions, as his thought process was systematized. Really think about that for a second. Pedagogy of the Oppressed lauds Che Guevara and the Mao Cultural Revolution. And this is the thing that has sold millions of copies, and is integrated into classrooms all over the country already. This is what is taught in schools of education. What's more, he mapped the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy of Marx into the student-teacher relationship that the teacher teaches and the student is taught is characteristic of the ideology of oppression, he argues, and so no real education can happen. Instead, he reframes education as revolution with teachers and pupils as co-equal actors. So think about what this means. So this guy thinks that when the teacher teaches and the student is taught, that is the ideology of oppression. Do you guys remember how in do you guys remember that anti-racist math teacher training manual that we read? In the anti-racist math teacher training manual, what it said is that teachers are not allowed to correct the students because they have to use the math of the ancestors that may be different from what the math that the teacher teaching is. So this is literally saying that if the teacher teaches, if the teacher corrects the students, if the teacher guides the education of the students, that teaching is oppression. That's what they're teaching in schools of education. Instead, it is a co-creation where the teacher and pupils are equal actors. So this is going to be important because I'm sure many of you with kids in schools or who have listened to my channel where we've talked about different curriculum have seen how they're trying to reframe education to be a co-creative environment rather than the teacher up here and the students down here. We've also seen where they say the kids should direct their education or we're taking our lead from the students. Think about Evergreen. Think about Evergreen State College. Evergreen State College was this in practice. Oh, we're just taking the lead from the students. The students are guiding all of this. We're just following behind the students and giving the students what they want. That's what this is. From this foundation, multiple subsidiary branches grow. While its proponents will defend CRT as only teaching accurate racial history or using race as a lens to better understand society, the issue is that CRT is not just this. Rather, CRT uses race and American history as a lens through which to condemn Western values such as objectivity and constitutional law. And each branch of critical pedagogy proceeds accordingly, using race, gender, class, and any other identity signifiers as a means to interrogate and condemn our country's commitment to classically liberal values. As this plays out in the classroom in units of study, one of the most popular English language arts curriculum in the country is a prime example for analysis. Its introductory pages state explicitly that it is built on critical theories. Think about that. In the introductory pages of one of the most popular English curriculums in the country, it states emphatically that it's built on critical theory. They don't even try to hide it. They do it in the open. I've used units of study in my career where you or I might remember from our schooling a teacher guiding a whole class through one classic text. In units of study, students select their own books, invariably always works of young adult fiction, and then analyze these books through various lenses, including critical race, feminist, post-colonial, and other identity signifiers. When I used these materials, it amounted to little more than independent reading time where students sat cloistered off, a few willing away from hours on pop fiction, and the rest pretended to read. Where traditionalist approaches to literary theory placed primary on the meaning within the text and authorial intent, critical theories of textual analysis impose meaning into the text, always leading a reader to the same conclusion through the chosen lens. Texts become important not necessarily for the meaning they bear within themselves or the larger truths to which they direct the reader, but as a means to interrogate society. In short, it builds a progressive confirmation bias into the very act of reading itself. That's really important. Critical pedagogy builds a progressive confirmation bias into the very act of reading itself. Now, think about if you have kids going through public schools, and in every English class they take through their entire public school education, if every single English class they take teaches them to insert a progressive confirmation bias into the very act of reading, that is the literal definition of indoctrination. That is how they create activists. It's not through one training or one lesson plan or any of that. It is in every single class the students take. It is in every single assignment they complete. It is in every single book they read. It is in every single discussion they have in every English class they ever take. And by the way, this isn't just in English, it's in history, it's in art, it's in sciences, it's in music, it's in math. In every single class they take their entire educational career. Children do not have the ability to defend themselves from this. Remember, the logic function of the brain does not fully develop until you are in your early to mid-20s. I don't care if they're in high school. The logic function of the brain does not fully develop until you are in your early to mid-20s. And by the time they're in high school, they've already had this throughout every middle school class they've ever taken, throughout every elementary school class they've ever taken. We literally just read an article about them doing this to disabled 3-year-olds. To disabled 3-year-olds. Tay-Fan, you're obviously new here, and I definitely encourage you to stick around, but I also encourage you to watch other videos on this channel, because this is absolutely in AP classes. This is 100% in AP classes. AP classes probably get the worst of it. I don't know how old you are. Age might have something to do with it. But this is absolutely in AP classes. There's no doubt about it. No doubt. Rather than learning from the ideas within the book, the units of study would have students come to the same conclusion about identity in every text in hand. The instructional practices and units of study are directly influenced by the progression sketched out above. Student-centered learning, a focus on immutable characteristics of the self, and reading through lens which seek not to analyze, but to impose meaning. So again, they're literally saying that one of the most popular English language textbooks seeks to teach people to impose the same meaning. This is why. This is why. It wasn't in school. It wasn't in school when you were in school. I was born in the 80s as well. This stuff wasn't around when I was in school, but it is around now. So things have just changed a lot. And I think that this is a good lesson for like anyone who's older watching in the chat. Just because you didn't have this in school doesn't mean it's not in school now. Age is absolutely a factor here. So that makes sense, Tay-Fan, about why you maybe didn't see this in school. But have no doubt that if you have kids in school now, they're learning it. 100%. Critical theory affects more than just the esoteric approach to literary analysis. In Seattle, the math curriculum centers on themes such as identity, oppression, history of resistance, and liberation in action. Its guiding questions ask, how important is it to be right? What is right? How can we use math to measure the impact of our activism? Social studies classrooms forgo learning the outlines of history, the actions, the foibles of great leaders, and the basics of political philosophy to instead run action civics projects. What do you think action civics is? Any guesses in the chat about what action civics might be? These projects, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you before you've even typed it into the chat. These take the project-based learning of the Romantics and apply a radical bent. They're creating little activists. Instead of designing model bridges or performing their own plays, Action Civics would have students research local problems, design solutions, and propose them to their local legislatures. There's nothing inherently nefarious about the latter project within a narrow curricular framework for high school students. But when such activism becomes the sole focus of a classroom, the school becomes not a place of learning traditionally understood, but an avenue for activism. This is how they're indoctrinating them to become little activists. They're infusing this meaning throughout the curriculum from the time they're 3 years old, even in disabled pre-Ks. And then all of a sudden, when they get a little bit older, all of a sudden they're doing projects and proposing ideas to their legislators. And that's not an inherently bad thing. It's not inherently bad to do projects in your community and then propose it to legislators, but keep in mind that they've trained them to have a progressive confirmation bias their entire educational career leading up to this. The subtlety of how they're indoctrinating students is so much scarier than the big headline on Tucker Carlson that says anti-white. And of course, we know that critical race theory isn't about race at all. It's about power, and that whiteness is only about who owns the power structure, which I'm sure we will find out tomorrow during happy hour. In critical pedagogy, every book, every historical event, every mathematical concept, everything becomes a mean to advance the same progressive worldview. Thus, our problem is far larger than CRT narrowly understood. Critical pedagogy both re-envisions and demands an overt redefinition of education. And while propaganda passing as education is concerning, there's a far more fundamental problem. This approach doesn't lead to students who can read, write, or think well. It works against the intellectual liberation that defenders of a liberal arts tradition advocate for through the acquisition of true knowledge and competence. Reviewing the units of study, Professor of Reading Timothy Shanahan has said that there is not a single study that supports the use of these methods within it, and it is unlikely to lead to literary success of American children. They're literally telling you that one of the most popular language arts curriculums in the country doesn't teach children how to read. It doesn't teach children how to read. If students spend their math classes learning about identity, they'll be unable to build the physical bridges and structures of society. If students don't learn American history and the structure of our government, they won't be able to comprehend a basic op-ed with any substantive understanding and analysis. When the unit of study focuses on identity rather than literacy, when a math curriculum in Seattle has students discuss power and activism instead of geometry and algebraic equations, when Fieri suggests we remove the loving authority and explicit instruction from our classrooms, students are left without the foundational knowledge and skills they need to enact real change in the world. Placards are easy. Building a society takes profound knowledge, wisdom, insight, and skill. The tragic irony is that if critical pedagogy has its way, when its adherents have razed everything to the ground, their students will lack the very education and vision needed to build something in its stead. It is a wholly cynical philosophy. What this is saying is that the thing that is literally taught in every school of education in the country, the thing that teachers are learning when they are training to become teachers, it's saying that this thing is not going to teach your kids to read, is not going to teach your kids to write, is not going to teach your kids to do math, is not going to teach your kids about government. Yeah, Catherine, this explains why our kids are stupid. Yes, it is because of the schools. This is why I am fully and completely committed that the only answer out of this problem is to defund the schools. That's it. That's the only answer that we have. We can mess around with school choice, funding alternatives in the meantime. But the fact of the matter is that until we start thinking of radical alternative options, We don't have a pool of teachers to pull from. We don't have a pool of teachers to pull from to teach basic things like reading and writing and math, because they've all been trained in critical effing pedagogy. A useful exercise in education is considering what it means to be educated. What sorts of people do we hope our students will become by the end of their schooling? One media grabbing example exemplifies the real life product and thereby flaws in critical pedagogy. In February of 2019, a group of students accosted progressive Democrat Senator Dianne Feinstein in a hallway, demanding, among other things, climate justice and her unqualified support of the Green New Deal. When the students offered little more than slogans and empty rhetoric, Feinstein rebuffed them and presented the various electoral, political, and monetary complications of which they were ignorant. The students confronting Feinstein expressed political zeal, but lacked any substantive knowledge with which to furnish their passion, a dangerous combination. So even though the schools are teaching these kids to adhere to a progressive mindset, they're not even teaching them enough information to be able to convince a senator that probably agrees with them. Facing this now perverse philosophy, our recourse is not quite clear, but it demands more than a few sanctions from governors' mansions. That's true. Laws against critical race theory are not going to fix this problem. Some of our country's most popular charter networks, such as Success Academy, although not explicitly classical, have built hundreds of neo-traditionalist schools that give primary to skills, knowledge, and order. Considering the ubiquity of critical pedagogy in universities, these institutions may be our best means of confronting this ideology, otherwise aiming our public pressure at universities. The wellspring of this philosophy would not put a stop to the flood. If we direct our ire only at public schools, we'll spend time scooping out floodwater while the faucet keeps running, reproducing the same curriculum, ideas, and teachers. That's why we just need to defund the schools. Today's progressive theorists only train students how to deconstruct the beautiful and true, not how to appreciate it. In place of teachers guiding students through the best which has been taught and said, arming them with the knowledge they need to affect change in the world, they would have students discussing whatever progressive controversy or ideas in vogue. I'll give our students Shakespeare and mathematical equations over placards and bullhorns any day. Well, this was a great article from Daniel Buck about where the basics of critical pedagogy. I'm really glad we read it. If you aren't scared, I don't know what to tell you. Well, I do have one more fun thing for the day, guys, but if you want to know more about this stuff, if you're not scared enough, you can make sure to come to my happy hour tomorrow over on my second channel, Actively Unwoke, where we will be watching a whole presentation from a local county government in Maryland, in which we will see this idea in practice. We will see Maryland tax dollars hard at work on the presentation. The problem is and always has been whiteness. We'll be doing that at 5 p.m. tomorrow over on my second channel. Make sure you just subscribe in the description below on whatever platform you're watching on. But I do want to show you one more thing. This made me so happy. Check this out. The New Hampshire Department of Education is on Getter. The New Hampshire Department of Education has joined Getter. They're at NHDOE on Getter. This is Frank Edelbutt. He's the Commissioner of Education in New Hampshire. He has never sent any of his kids to public school. He has like 7 of them. Homeschooled all his kids. Currently running education in New Hampshire. And is the most based education commissioner in the country. Did you know that Frank Edelbutt's department in New Hampshire actually built an online system where parents can report teachers for teaching critical race theory? And I got to tell you, the progressives aren't happy about it. The progressives are so upset. that Frank Edelbud is on Gitter because Frank announced it on Twitter. They all started reading. My favorite state rep in New Hampshire, Keith Ammon, documented all the crazy. If you aren't following Keith Ammon on Twitter, you need to. Keith Ammon is like one of the most base state reps in all of New Hampshire. He's like got the undercover best Twitter account in all of New Hampshire. But look at some of the reactions to Frank getting on Gitter. Carissa is educating for good, says, can we please get some standards defined on what platforms and outlets New Hampshire officials should be officially using to communicate? I'm not saying Twitter has to be on the list, but Gitter. And then Rev Heidi, she, hers. This is our Commissioner of Public Education in New Hampshire shifting all Department of Ed to a notoriously right-wing platform. Worth noting, one of the only Gitter accounts DOE is following is a certain podcaster, notorious for disinformation. Who's that? Oh, Joe Rogan. Also following Chris Sununu, which I don't approve of. Why does that have a check? Why does that have a different check? That's weird. Did Chris Sununu on Gitter put his own check? Holy shit. Chris Sununu on Gitter put his own check mark in his handle. That's funny. I got to get Frank to follow me on there. We'll look at one more reaction from Granite State Progress. Tell us again how Sununu's hand-picked education commissioner isn't just a right-wing political hack working to undermine public education in New Hampshire. All because Frank started a Gitter account. All because of that. So go ahead, follow my education commissioner on Gitter. And while you're there, you can follow me too. I love Gitter. I actually have the official Gitter verification seal of approval. I don't even know what. So follow me on Gitter. I'm just Carlin on Gitter. I'm having a great old time on Gitter. I really like the platform. It's got much better energy than Twitter for me, and I'm interacting with more people on Gitter. So make sure you follow me there. If you post at me or tag me in something and tell me you watch my channel or you follow me or any of that, I will absolutely make sure to follow you back. I'm following back everyone that does that on Gitter. And just so you guys know, Joshua's on Gitter too. Joshua's on here. He's psychic. Joshua. There he is. Psychic Joshua is on here as well, so make sure you follow Joshua on Gitter. I'm trying to get him onto all the right-wing platforms. I'm working very, very hard. All right, guys, this is all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, just as one final reminder, I do streams at 5 p.m. on my main channel on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Fridays, we go to my second channel, Actively Unwoke. On Saturdays, I take the day off. But I do still try to post clips, and I've got a whole bunch of clips I need to create from yesterday's show, from today's show. I'll probably be posting something on Saturday. If you guys don't hear from me or YouTube doesn't serve you any of my content, just check back in, because YouTube has shadow banned me to high heaven. So I'm doing the best I can. I'm posting content all the time just to make sure that you have something to watch. And please join me tomorrow for happy hour over on Actively Unwoke. I'm really looking forward to watching this presentation. We're going to play Unwoke Bingo. It's going to be an awesome time. And one final reminder, because I'm still symptomatic for the moment, but I might not be tomorrow. I am going to put out into the universe. I am going to manifest that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to feel amazing. And I'm not going to have COVID anymore. And I'm going to be able to talk and not be congested. And my throat's going to be back to normal. And I'm going to feel great. And so this could be the very last day to take a free month in my locals, to check it out, to join our community Zooms, to join our book club, to talk about psychological warfare and all that stuff. But you have to sign up using the promo code COVID. Head over to kb.locals.com/support. Make sure the monthly option is checked. Put that term COVID in there. Apply. Make sure you get that green message. And then you can sign up and get a free month in my locals. You can also get a full year for $50, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift if you want to support me. Guys, I take all sorts of different ways for one-time gifts. You can give me, like, you can donate on PayPal. You can donate in crypto now. I have different crypto options in my description. But I really like it when people come through locals, because when you make a one-time gift through locals, you unlock all the features of the platform for like the duration of that gift. So whatever monthly amount that amounts to, like $100 is going to get you like 2 years in my locals. It's going to be like 2 years. You get all the features and the benefit of that gift. And of course, like I said, locals takes a smaller cut than YouTube does. Not that I don't love your super chats. I do love your super chats and your channel memberships and all that. And I greatly appreciate the support. But I want to get as many people into locals as possible. And so this is the best time. I normally tell people to sign up for free at kb.locals.com. But since you can get the free month using the promo code, there's just like no excuse, guys. Locals is the best. I may not have the biggest community in locals, but I absolutely have the best community in locals. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock over on my second channel. And I will see you back on Sunday live for Effed Up News at 5 p.m. on Sunday. It's going to be a great Effed Up News this week. We've got so many Effed Up articles. I might have Effed Up News might go extra long on Sunday. We're going to see how it goes. But guys, have a great rest of the day, great weekend, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow as we round out the week. We made it. It's almost over. Almost time to celebrate. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.